Hi everyone. So this is identifying literary conventions using the FEAR plus C acronym, which is going to be useful in Year 12 and Year 11 literature, and also for English mainstream as well. In particular though, I'm going to focus on literature, creative responses to text. So Unit 3, area of study 2. In this particular unit, you're going to be able to demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of an original text's features, elements, and views and values through the adaptation of these qualities into your own work. So here we have 4 movie posters, and they tell us a lot. They're giving us a visual representation of what each movie is about. We've got adventure, we've got romance, we've got horror or scary, and we've got sci-fi / superhero happening here. So we're learning a lot about what's going to be happening. It's foreshadowing a lot about the movie to us here. And this is exactly what the FEAR plus C acronym helps us do when reading a text. It helps us get a snapshot of what's the book about. So just like these movie posters tell us a whole heap about these movies, so does the text tell us about what's happening in time, what's happening on a deeper level, which is why we need the FEAR plus C acronym. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to identify the characteristics of the text types and how they are used to create a particular stylistic genre. So just like in these movie posters, we can tell it's an adventure film in Jumanji because of the way the outfits they're wearing, the setting, it's like jungle, they're all wearing sort of explorer type clothes. So that gives you that idea it's the adventure. So we want to know what literary things show us this is an adventure book, so to speak. So why do you need to know this? Well, you will need to know how to do FEAR plus C for all of your assessments in literature. But for this one in particular, it's so that you can submit an original piece of writing using the same style and context as the original text. You might also be asked to change the form of the text, so from a novel into a play or into a poem, something like that, or change the point of view from one of the characters to a different character's point of view. So you need to be able to identify these literary conventions that are going to help you keep with that style. So what is FEAR plus C? Features, elements, author's views and values, reader response, and context. So context is added at the end there because it influences all parts of fear. But it's a good way of remembering it. FEAR plus C. So for features, these are the technical building blocks. So the little specific parts of the writing that's going to help us create meaning. So these are style, language use, structure, word choice, metaphors, alliteration, personification, syntax, imagery, rhythm, all those type of things that help us create a picture or describe something to an audience. So little tiny bits of the writing. The elements, these are the bigger part. So if you think of the features as the small building blocks, the little bricks, they're the bricks that make the building. So the elements are the building. So these are the parts you'll remember the most from the story. If you actually read your text, so you should read your text, you won't be able to forget these. You will know what the elements are. They're the big obvious things. So who are the main characters? What's the main plot? Where's the main thing set? Those are the big parts. What's the main theme? Is it a romance? Is it a horror? Those kind of things. You'll remember that from reading the text. Your author's views and values. This is what is the author trying to tell us through the story. It's usually a reflection on the society at the time. So if you're reading a historical piece, the author might be trying to convey how unfair the social class system is. Or maybe you're reading a book and it's about war, and the author's trying to convey like the devastation and depression brought on by the war and the futility of it all. So those kind of things are usually what are going to come through in the writing. It's not something that you're going to notice straight away. It could be like over time you'll see these reoccurring themes pop up, and then you realize, okay, this is the author's really constantly going back to this theme. So that would be one of their views or their values. So their views, their core beliefs, attitudes, what they're expressing, and their values are the core ideas or principles by which we should live by. So things like justice, fairness, leadership, that kind of thing, importance of family and knowledge. Once again, with these, any interpretation you come up with can be validated as long as you can support it by evidence from your text. So referring back to your text in your writing, always saying the author shows this particular view because of whatever scene, blah, blah, blah. Again, reader response is similar to the author's views and values. What is the reader meant to feel? What is the reader meant to think? And how is the reader's experience influenced by the techniques in the book? So if you're reading a comedy and the author's trying to make you laugh, make it funny, they're going to use some sort of irony, and a lot of the time they might use alliteration so that it rolls off the tongue faster maybe. And they're hoping that you find it funny and you'll laugh and you'll feel happy. So then you would write that in your response by saying, the author invites the audience to feel blah, 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 or the author reminds the audience or influences the audience through this technique. Happiness is provoked through the author's use of this word, that kind of thing. And context, which impacts every part of fear, that's really like what was happening at the time when the text was produced. So the social, historical, cultural, and ideological aspects. The author, was the author living through the war? Was the author living in Victorian England or something like that? Were they struggling with this class system? Those type of things. How has that influenced the writing that the author's used, or the views and the values of the author? I've just got here a little example from Jane Austen's Persuasion. And this particular text was actually in one of the previous exams. So have a go here, maybe pause and try and look for the fear plus C elements. So they might not all be there, but you should be able to find some things, some literary conventions that convey this stuff. So I'll let you pause and then we'll go through the example. So hopefully you've had a chance to have a go yourself, highlighting the fear plus C in this passage, but I've got a few here. We've got features, we've got alliteration, attaining affluence, word choice, the use of engagement. The features here are, in this big one, is known to so few, to be snatched off by a stranger without alliance or fortune. It's a bit of a metaphor for how the person thinks that this girl's going to go into poverty. Elements here, most of these are characterizations, so they're building your character. So that's, the bigger element, how we see that person. So Anne Elliot, with all her claims of birth, beauty, and mind, young and gentle, or Captain Wentworth, he has no fortune, he's lucky to get his profession, he spends freely. So it's telling you a little bit about that character. Author's views and values here. This is something that you kind of get a sense of as you read the paragraph. It's not going to be as explicit in one line or one word. It's going to come through once you read it. You're going to be like, okay, I'm getting the sense that the author thinks in this time it's socially not appropriate for a young girl to go off with a stranger who has no fortune. So something about class system, there could be a little bit of a hint there. in the author's views and values. Again, reader response. You look at the features such as his sanguine temper and fearlessness of mind. You're getting a sense that this is a strong character, so to speak. So the author is trying to get you to feel that sense that he's strong, that kind of thing. Again, it's something that's going to come through when you read more of the text. It's not something that's going to be as explicit in one line. Context, once again, something that comes through as you read more of the text and are exposed to more of the language, what's happening, that type of thing. But little cues like the word lady in front of Russell, Lady Russell, or Captain Wentworth, gives you an idea that, okay, this is probably not a modern day text because we don't use that kind of language as colloquial anymore. Here's another chance for you to have a go of working out what kind of Fear C goes into a genre and a text type. So I've got historical romance, horror poem, and comedic play. So have a go, think of the features, elements, the author's views that might be conveyed, the reader responses that we're expecting, and what type of context do you think reflects in these text types and these genres. So have a pause and have a go. So hopefully you've had a chance to have a go. And I've done a little example here for you. So you can see we've got common features of a novel, common features of a poem, and common features of a play. Again, I've done elements and the reader response. So you would expect to see in a poem a lot of alliteration, a lot of metaphors, rhyming, the language structure, that kind of thing. In a play, lots of allegory, again, metaphor, dialogue, that sort of thing. And in a novel, you're looking at, is it first person? Is it third person? How does that influence the text? Elements of them. In a scary one, it's dark, it's nighttime. Reader response, we want fear and anxiety. In a comedy, we want happiness and irony. Romance, we want happiness and longing, love, those type of things. Author's views and values, it's going to be dependent on what particular text you're reading, but things like social justice, importance of love, criticism of some sort of social context is usually expected. And context, again, it's going to be dependent on what particular text you're reading, but we're looking at, is it Victorian England? Is it World War II? Is it ancient Egypt? Was there something going on with the role of women? Was the class system really patriarchal? Is the person living in a place where religion and cultural traditions are really stringent and really impact how people act in that society, in that era? So those type of things are all going to influence your text. So once you've got a list like this, so you would do a list like this for your own text that you're reading. And then once you've got that list, you can apply it to your own creative response. So you'll know, okay, I need to have these type of features in my original piece. I need to have a bad guy. It needs to be darker. I've got to think of word choice that's going to evoke fear and anxiety. But I'm also conscious that I need to be promoting these values of importance of social justice, or a criticism on I don't know, science or something like that. Showing, you've got to reflect in your own piece the context and the views and values of the author. So hopefully this has given you a little bit of an idea of how you can go about identifying these Fear plus C conventions and applying them to the text that you've been given for this term, and then hopefully it will help you in creating your own pieces. The final little tip, read your text and read it again, and a third time if you need to, and make sure you're stopping and highlighting these Fear plus C conventions. Write little notes in the corner of your book. Those kind of things are always going to pop out to you more. If you've written notes, you'll remember it. And it's going to be really helpful for all of your assignments this year. So it is something that's handy to have on hand to remember these type of things. So good luck.